Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. Welcome back to the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Join you as always is myself, Ewan Ramsey, and my co-host Alan Scrimger. We do hope you are all good and well. And why wouldn't you be? To get the biggest scare of your life, and then a few minutes later to wrap it off with a very eventful first half against Livingston at the weekend, where all 6 goals were scored all in the first half, and Hearts came from behind 2 goals down to win 4-2 to guarantee us European football next season, which is a fantastic feat in itself, with just the post split fixtures left to come, which we still don't have, but all that in good time as well. So yeah, we're going to be talking a bit about the game. We'll talk about the facts in terms of where the club is table wise as a whole, and we will look a bit into our next game where we are on the road to Hampden in our Scottish Cup semi final quest to reach to the final against Rangers. So we will end the podcast on that note. And as always, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the Since I Was Young podcast via our YouTube page, please think about subscribing. And if you want to get in contact with us via our socials as well, please feel free to do so. All will be in the description and on screen as always. So, yes, we do hope you're all good and well and that you enjoy this one. So, Alan, as I said at the start, a frantic first half. I said the last time we were chatting last week, I thought was a bit out there to suggest that 4 goals would be scores and a frantic 6 all in the first half. Absolute scenes. Obviously, we will start with the lineups as we usually do. I'm going to go from the defense upwards, and then obviously we'll talk a bit about the main comeback in the team. So obviously, we had a back four this time round of Atkinson, Kent, Rose, and Cochrane, with Devlin and Benny in the centre, and a forward line of Oda, Grant, Shankland, and a first start for Barry Mackay since December, which was lovely to see. And also back in between the sticks as well. I think it was his first home game, I think, since his injury, which was our beloved skipper, Craig Gordon. Um, yeah, I guess we could start with Gordon. Were you obviously surprised that he got put in to start ahead of Xander Clark? Again, like I don't. I mean, as far as I was aware, I didn't hear anything in terms of any injuries or any like sort of illnesses with Clark itself. Do you think that was maybe just a choice made by Naismith, maybe perhaps to get some time in before the semi final itself, because he has been our cup goalkeeper thus far? Or do you maybe think, on the other hand, that he maybe plans to play Clark in the semi final, so he thought he would give Gordon this game to actually get the minutes in? What were your thoughts on that?
I think um, Gordon's been the cup goalkeeper this season, and it's amazing to see him back at just back at all. Never mind just at tiny. Like for someone to come back after that horrific injury is remarkable. And yeah, I think Gordon has been the cup goalkeeper for us this season, and I think that will continue at Hampden. As much as I like Xander Clark, and I think he's done very, very well, I think the reason for playing Gordon was to make sure he was warm ahead of the semi final. I think starting Clark against Livingston and then throwing Gordon into a game against Rangers would be dangerous. I'm not saying Gordon couldn't cope with that, but I think when you consider the teams, like I was thinking about this earlier, when you consider our cup run that we've had, sure, Gordon's made a few decent saves, but he's not really been overly tested in any of those games, considering the opposition that we played against up until obviously now. So I think it makes sense for Gordon to start against Livingston. But it was nice to see. I'm sure it was Joe Sked that something like it was. I think it's his first game at Tynecastle for something like 470 odd days or something like that. Um, and Gordon said, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Gordon said in the sort of after-match Q&A thing that the Heart Standard put up, he was basically saying, it was his aim was to get back and play in front of the fans at Tynecastle, so he feels like he's accomplished that. What that means for his future, I don't know, but he did say, I just wanted to get back and play in front of the fans at Tynecastle, and it's nice to see him. Like I said, it's always nice to see Gordon. He's magnificent.
That's fair, mate. That's fair. Well, I guess since we are on the subject of Gordon as well, because just to talk about the first goal that was scored, which was by Livingston. I think you and I may have a difference of opinion in terms of I mean, it doesn't particularly matter now, but it's just more good to actually get a little insight of things. So, obviously, the ball was played over the top by the Livingston goalkeeper George, and it goes over both Atkinson and Kent, and Craig Gordon came out to try and get the ball out of harm's way, and then unfortunately it ended up to him the opposition's feet, and then ends up in the back in it. And I mean, to be fair, was quite a decent finish it. To be fair, but I know that you were saying that does Gordon actually need to come out to try and clear the ball itself? Now, I'll be very honest. In the all-round performance, and I'm saying as a player, I didn't particularly think that Atkinson and Kent had a brilliant game. I thought, I think Kent as well, was a tiny bit at fault for the second goal as well. I thought it was I mean, we can both agree that both goals were quite soft and easy to give away. But in my personal opinion, just watching back the highlights themselves, I think in that sense, there wasn't enough urgency from both Atkinson and Kent to get to the ball as it's going over them. Whereas, for all as much as it didn't end particularly well, I respected the fact that Gordon had the urgency to get out and trying to declare it. But, would you say that there's a particular blame on anyone, or would you just feel in that particular defensive area it was that that kind of right-sided defensive line that was at fault for the first goal?
Yeah, I think so. I think as much as it pains me to say it, I think Natty and Kent were not great in that first 20 minutes. And yeah, it's a long ball, and I hate seeing defenders get done by a long ball. It's one of those, we play a higher line because we're at home. We should be playing further up the pitch, and that's clearly a plan that they've tried to do this season, and it's worked in the most part. But a long ball over the top like that should be dealt with, and I get it. Maybe they misread it or they get caught out, and Gordon obviously has a better view, and he thinks I can come out and just claim this and take care of it, and he obviously does. He makes that decision to come off his line, and it's one of those things. If he wasn't so far off his line, I might have thought, yeah, okay. And I still think he's done the right thing, because I think, like you say, Atkinson gets caught out and won't make it back in time, and Kent is very much the same. So I think Gordon kind of realizes, right, I have to come for this. So he makes that choice and he goes out to it. He takes a touch, and then I don't know, maybe it's me. To me, I just think it just needs to go into the stand. Even if Gordon just volleys it into the stand, I've no problem with him coming out for it. But I do think the decision to play the ball back into play was the wrong one. Or, well, if it was the right one, he's not found the person he's meant to pass it to, because it went straight to a Livy player. And obviously, as we say, the rest is history. But yeah, but again, that's what goes back to Gordon getting the minutes against Livingston and building up that understanding and relationships with his defenders, because yes, okay, we got away with it against Livingston because we came back and won the game, but you make that sort of mistake against Rangers at Hampden in the semi-final, you switch off, and I'm talking the defenders. I'm not talking Gordon here. If a defender switches off like that at Hampden against Rangers, we're in big trouble.
Mm.
So there's an element of that, but I think, to me, that ball just had to go into the stand. And I don't know whether Gordon wanted to do that, maybe got his touch wrong, or if he's intentionally sort of, because he kind of brought it down before he tried to pass it out. So, yeah, whatever the plan was in his head didn't work. And he acknowledged it. He said, I made the choice, and I still feel it was the right choice. And he's correct because his defenders were sold. But that's why that right hand side of defence is a huge priority in the summer window that we have to address. Because, and again, I won't go into our right backs because everybody knows what my preference is. But it's important that we get a right back in that can compete and be better. It's got
Mm-hmm.
to be an upgrade on Atkinson, as much as I hate to say it, because Atkinson does have holes in his game, and I think everybody can see that. And that was certainly on show in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly, my friend. And then it wasn't too long as well before we got even more misery put upon us as well. Once again, Stephen Kelly to grab himself his second goal. Again, as I said before, from a very easy throw in, and then I think it's Ken intercepted the ball, but again, it ends up at David Kelly's feet outside of the box. And then again, you have to give him credit as well. It was a good finish.
Yeah.
Again, there is a bit of a debate to be had whether Gordon could have done better. Like, again, it's not particularly important now, but again, to go 2-0 down in the space of 20 minutes from a team that's sitting the rock bottom. I said last week as well, if there was any team that you wanted to get 3 points against, it looked like that after the first 20 minutes. But, you know, when it got to that point, again, this is it's interesting that we're talking about this now and how we feel about the squad in general after a year. Because obviously going into the tail end of last season, it was probably about this time that Robbie got sacked as well, and from the few games that we saw from Naismith as well, we didn't really know what to expect as well, and that's a few times now this season that we've actually came from 2 goals down. Obviously against Livingston just there, County as well, as I recall as well at home, and like maybe if you were talking to me a year ago, I would have said straight away that we're going to struggle to get back into this, but with the 2 games that I can recall on the top of my head just now, I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel panicked. I knew at some point that we would kick in to gear. But again, that's also been a recurring thing is that if we're slow in the first half, we're far better in the second half, and vice versa, which seemed to be the overall theme in this game as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think like you say, at 2-0 down, you're sort of thinking, how is this 2-0?
Mm.
Livingston did start the game very well, and I kind of thought that they would. I said it last week that they're as good as relegated. I think it's kind
Yeah.
of a foregone conclusion. But while it's not mathematically done, Martindale will be wanting his players to try and get as many points on the board as they can. And they started the game very well, and we didn't, obviously. But like you say, the mentality of this Hearts team is something that can't be questioned this season. We've had questions asked about it before under previous managers, not just Robbie. Players
Mm.
prior to that as well, managers prior to that as well. But you know, Hearts teams of years and years ago, 2-0, you'd have fans leaving
Yeah.
genuinely. And it's because it would be almost inevitable that well, we're not going to win. And I think when, without sort of going into too much, and I'll save it for future episodes, but when Naismith came in and he spoke about the Nazy ball and wanting to be attacking and not just take more risks and be a bit more front foot, I think that kind of got lost a little bit And I think it, in as much as I've been very impressed with the way we've attacked this season, I think defensively we've been far better than I can remember for a long time. And it's great to see that. Obviously, I'm talking about that when we've gone 2-0 down against Livingston after 20 minutes and two absolute howlers from defenders. But there's just a mentality that seems different. And I think Cochrane said it last week when he was asked about it. He said, in previous years, maybe last season, we were maybe a wee bit soft and a wee bit kind of easy. And he's like, now we don't have that. And he's like, now we fight for each other and we'd never feel like we're out of it, which is a huge, huge, massive characteristic to have for any team. Like, especially because, I mean, our season is effectively done. Let's be honest. Like, we're third place. We're 11 points ahead. We're not going to drop that. It would take a monumental collapse and for Kilmarnock to win every game, which I don't see happening.
No.
So, for us, our season is effectively kind of teetering out, aside from the semi-final, obviously. But for them to find that mentality again, like I say, to just turn it on and go, right, okay, that start wasn't good enough, but it's still very early. I think that's the thing, when like you said, when it went to 2-0, you weren't overly concerned. I was a little bit, but then at the same time, I'm looking at the time on the clock and I'm going, how are we 2-0 down after like 20 minutes? Like, what is this? There's still like 3/4 of the game to go and we're 2-0 down. Like, if we can get the next one, we're back on again. Which, like I say, is not a comment that I've been able to make about Hearts teams of the past.
Absolutely not, man. Absolutely not. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think in terms of the character of the team, or sorry, character of the team, I think in general compared to last year, like you can see there is more of a unity there, and a kind of a like a team, a unit, and almost as such as like as even if we do lose, I feel as if we lose as a team, and it's not just down to individual players being singled out, etc. So, and like that proved to be true, as it was only about 5 or 6 minutes after 3 goals that were literally like, if you will, all coming from the left hand side, all played across the back, but very well work goals as well. Obviously, we'll talk about the first one, which was scored by Grant. I think most noticeably the star kind of moment of that goal was Brandon Mackay's inward pass as well with the outside of his foot. It was a beautiful little dink, and then played in by Shankland, and then Grant was there to pop it into the back in the net. Obviously the goal was important, but just all round in terms of the whole game. What did you make of Barry Mackay's um, um, first appearance since December?
Oh, I've said this about Barry Mackay before, and I think people have maybe disagreed with me, which is entirely fine. But I think when I saw Barry Mackay's name on the team sheet, I was delighted. He has such a technical brain. Like, he's got such a footballing intelligence. And some people say, oh, he's lazy, he's this, he's that. And I get it. I get it. And until he turns up in a big game and does something big, he'll still get that thrown at him as well. But when he gets that ball, I don't think, and I said this to you, I don't think there is another player in that Hearts team that not only sees that pass, but makes it with the outside of the foot, a little sort of dink. It was just sublime. And, people that know me know I like an intelligent football player, which is why I love Liam Boyce as much as I do. And Barry Mackay is definitely up there. And I think, I posted something about Barry Mackay when he came back to training and fitness. And I said, a fit Barry Mackay starts for Hearts every week. And some people disagree.
I would agree. No. I would agree on that one.
I don't like. It's one of those you'd have to obviously find the system to fit him into, and maybe in the 5-3-2 he doesn't fit, which again we'll speak about later when we're talking semi-final stuff. But he did incredibly well in the game in that first half, just to find the space. And obviously, as I say, the pass into Shankland was brilliant. And George Grant continues to again prove, not so much prove me wrong. I think that's maybe the wrong words, but prove to me what a player he actually is. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was absolutely brilliant against Livingston, and I think he'll be very disappointed if he doesn't start against Rangers in the semi final, which a few weeks ago, I'm not sure I would have said that. But he seems to just have found a knack of being in the right place at the right time. And it's massive. And that goal is obviously the most important example of it. Like he's in the box, which is where Naismith wants his players to be when the ball's in that area. Because if the cross is on, we play the cross. Like you have to. Like that the cutback was brilliant from Shankland, and as I say, Grant just gets there and puts it away, which it kind of sparked a bit of life back into us, and it was like, right, okay, we've got one back now. This is game on again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Grant deserves a huge amount of credit, because I know that there's people that don't like him or don't like me, don't really know what he is, and I said that before. And whatever the future holds for George Grant beyond the summer, I don't know. You know, basing off the players that we're bringing in the summer and the pre-contracts, etc. But I think he's done himself no harm in the last few weeks, and I think that goal, because obviously he's scoring penalties, which is nice, but you know, I'm sure he'll be happy to get one from open play and you know, kind of be like, right, keep going. I think it's 3 goals in 3 games potentially. And yeah, just really, really happy for him, because he has had some critics, myself included. So again, I'm very happy to not have to criticise him for a week.
Well done, Dirty Mangu Jorge, indeed. The second the goal as well, again, much like a carbon copy as well, long ball in behind. I didn't even notice that Shanklin got 2 assists as well. Fantastic value. And and yes, and young Oda was there to knock it in as well to bring us back to level. That was a question I was going to ask you as well, because obviously, we started to see a bit more of Oda at the end of last season, more so when Naismith actually came in. And, when we actually brought Oda over, you know, this begs the question whether Oda was actually, well, at the actual time, if it was Nielsen's choice to bring him over, or if it was more of a um his name escapes me. Alan, help me out.
Savage.
Thank you. And I've not did we've not talked about him in quite a long time actually, and and yeah, or I don't know if it was more of a savage like sort of signing as such, but throughout last year we obviously didn't see him that much, and then when he started to play more, he started to grow a bit more than the confidence as well. He's not been a regular, I would say, throughout this season, but he's done well in spells. I was just wanting to ask as well, even though that was only his 5th goal of the season, do you think that he's still a part of um Naismith's plans for next year? Because obviously with the signings of both Danda and Spittle as well, obviously there's going to be a bit more competition there to be part of that forward line as well, and you could even include Grant in this conversation as well. Do you feel as if it's more of a conversation for for the end of a season review, but can you still see these players kind of sticking around for the new season?
I think so. I think Oda, you're right in what you say. Like last season, he kind of took a bit of time, and then he just sort of exploded under Naismith, and it was like, right, this kid's got something about him. And I kind of go back and forward on Oda in the sense of I absolutely love him. I think
Hmm.
he's a cracking little player. I think he's the perfect sort of player for Hearts to have, and he suits the league incredibly well because he's physical, but he also knows how to use it. Like like he's not like a Vargas who is
Hmm.
obviously low center of gravity, quite small, puts himself about. Oda's not. He's not like a tank. He's not like a Stevie Humphreys, but he knows how to use his frame and he knows how to be physical and win what he needs to win. And I think the sort of player that he is a big asset for us. I think his pace when he comes off the bench, as I say, I go back and forward on him because sometimes I'm like, I'd love to see him start more games, but then the other
Hmm.
half of me is like, he's brilliant when he comes off the bench. He's the perfect kind of player to have off the bench because he can change the tempo, and he can find the space in the tired defenses and stuff. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about Oda in terms of long term future because he's the age profile as well that you want to keep around, and I think Naismith will want to hang on to him. But again, in a similar way with the George Grant goal, he was just in the right place at the right time, and really happy to see him get a goal because, as I say, I think he's a fantastic player, and I think he's definitely still in the project player category in that there's still work to do with him. But I think in terms of his overall game, he's got more than enough to be an asset. And I know obviously we're signing some new players in the summer, and there will be some more to come in, I would imagine. But we have to think about it in terms of a European campaign as well, and having as strong a squad as we can. And as much as I'm sure Oda would love to be starting every week, I think appearances off the bench isn't a bad way to go about it, especially if he comes on and makes an impact, which he usually does one way or
Hmm.
another. But yeah, I think, as I say, it is a conversation to have in the summer, but I don't imagine that Oda would be going anywhere.
And the fact as well is that you mentioned a certain name that is out of contract as soon as December hits. Would you take Humphreys back in a fucking heartbeat? Wouldn't you? Bro,
just for just for
over
the vibes.
over tag right. Just think about this as well, right? Obviously Tagawa has not been a regular starter, and who knows, he can maybe start to gain some ground next year and be part of the squad while we go on this campaign. However, to have him on as a backup with Shankland, he knows how well. He obviously understands how the campaign went the year before as well. He was part of that. He scored a few goals. He absolutely loved it. He embraced, what we as a club were all about. I'd have him back in a fucking second. Absolutely, my man.
Yeah, and like I say, purely for the ability to wind up opposition fans, particularly Hibs supporters. I do seem to remember a lot of back and forward with Stevie Humphreys on Twitter with multiple Hibs supporters. So for that and that alone, I would certainly have him. Maybe we could send them Tagawa as like a sweetener. As much as I want Tagawa to succeed, if it was a choice right now between Tagawa and Stevie Humphreys, I'd be back in the griddying Stevie Humphreys to return any day of the week.
Absolutely, my man. Very well agreed. And we get to the further goal, which I think was more of a team effort as well. I think we started like way from the back as well and just built up the ball. Um, this time, like it was Cochrane, I believe that they got the ball in again, exact same goal, and our young Australian terrier was in there at the right time to put the ball past George and to get us ahead. I think, I mean, even when we were at 2-2, I straight away felt, yeah, we've they got this wrapped up. But, again, it was nice to see Devlin get back on the score sheet as well. Um, I don't know if you noticed this as well, but every player that scored, their celebrations were nowhere to be seen. I guess, like, if you're getting beat 2-0 by a team at the bottom of the league, I guess it's not going to make you particularly happy either way. No.
No, no, I think that's it. I think when you're trying to fight back, but I said this to you. I think the Devlin goal is my favourite goal, aside from the Barry Mackay pass for the first one. But the third goal is definitely my favourite goal. Devlin wins the ball initially. I think he wins a header from memory, and then it kind of breaks down. Then he gets it back and he passes it out. And like we know that it's knowledge that Devlin has basically been told that Naismith wants to see more out of him in terms of going forward and in terms of developing that side of his game. So to see him do that and to see him be in the box, yeah, okay, it was a relatively easy goal to finish it off, but just to have that drive to get forward and be in that place to score is a big indication that what Devlin's taking it on board and he's going right. If I get the opportunity, I'm going forward. Like, and it's great. Like everybody loves Cammy, don't they? Like he's a little terrier. So to see him celebrate and be happy with scoring a goal is always nice. But yeah, the bit of the goal, one of the bits of the goal that I loved was the wee Shankland flick into the path of Cochrane for him to play the cross in. Again, it's a part of Shankland's game that kind of goes underappreciated because of the goals he scored this season. His link-up play is just phenomenal for Shankland, which is a huge positive from him as well. But yeah, listen, Cammy's everybody's favourite. He's just like a little teddy. You just want to give him a cuddle. I very nearly did when I met him. Had to restrain myself.
Absolutely. So.
But yeah, it was a really good worked goal, and I think once that went in, it was kind of like certainly from my point of view, it was a bit of a sigh of relief. It was like, right, okay, we're in front now. Let's forget about that 20 minutes. It was manic. I've not known a period of football quite like that at Tynecastle for a very long time.
I
So to
agree
get
on
back
that.
in the lead, to get back in the lead before half time was very important.
Absolutely, and just to wrap things off as well for that first half as well, um, literally just on the stroke of halftime as well. Um, Shanklin scores from the spot, his 28th goal of the season, which is fantastic. But what I was more kind of impressed, not even with the penalty itself, more from Oda. What I found most impressive was that he reads what's going to actually happen, even literally just before the ball starts to go back to George. Oda read that straight away, and he knew exactly what he was doing, and he gets straight out to the ball first. Wins the penalty, gets taken out, and by that point, the match was signed, sealed, and done with all 3 points.
Yeah, I'd like to say that when you score 3 goals and a half and none of them are Shankland, it's like right, when Shankland going to get a goal?
Exactly.
So for him to pop up and get the penalty was brilliant. Yeah, listen, Oda, like I say, it goes back to what I said about him before. I think he's a very talented footballer that I don't really think we've unlocked the best of him yet, which is obvious. I mean, he's very young still, but the ability that he has, and like you say, the way he just reads it and he gets himself in a position to be taken out, because he knows if I don't score this, I'm going to get taken out by the goalkeeper and win a penalty anyway, which is obviously what happened. And it was a very well taken penalty as well.
And as I said, that brought Shanklin's goal tally to 28. So that 30 goal mark for the season looks incredibly likely. Yeah, and I'll be very honest, Alan. There's probably not much to talk about the second half. I thought it was relatively comfortable. The only chance that I can reconcile was Shanklin's shot that came off the crossbar, but apart from that, as I said, relatively comfortable. So I don't think we need to go into too much detail, and we can look ahead to both the post split fixtures and the semi final. The split fixtures, as I'm sure we're very all aware, have not been announced due to the Dundee Rangers game that has been postponed due to, well, the pitch. Pretty much for all of you who has seen it, absolute swimming pool out there. So they're not going to announce it until the game has actually been played. But I saw today that if the pitch at Dens Park is unplayable, then Craig Levine has been kindly to offer them their pitch to actually play the game. So I believe the fixtures will be announced as soon as the game has been played and all said is done. Um, so from what you've sent me, Alan, so we're sitting on 62 points. We've already beaten last season's points tally, which again is nice to see. Third place, I think we could probably all say, unless there's a monumental head breakdown, we pretty much got that wrapped up as well. And then interesting thing as well. So our record points tally has been 74 in recent years, which was back in 2005-6 season. Obviously, we have our Champions League the qualifier triumph under Romanov. And we do have the potential to get 77, which, again, if we, on the other end, if we pull off a monumental like sort of performances against all 5 games, but I can probably safely say that won't happen. But in regards to the games themselves and whether or not, if we get 3 home games or 2 away games or vice versa, just from the teams that are in the top 6, you know, I could probably safely say, just because the title race is very close. Obviously, that's blown wide open with the Ross County victory over Rangers as well. I think they'll be striving for every point that they can both get their hands on, and they'll want to be on top of the game as well. So I don't see us probably I say, like, there's an incy chance that we may, but we're probably not going to get anything from that. And even with the other 3 games with Kilmarnock, Dundee, and Mirren as well, you've got to say that Kilmarnock have been brilliant throughout this year in terms of the turnaround that Kynnes has made. Um, you know, we've only taken 2 points out of the 2 home games we've played against them as well. So in that regard, I think 70 points is achievable, I would say. But in regards to that, what would be your points tally we're expected to get? And do you think we can actually break that 70-point mark?
I think it's interesting. I was just looking it up there, and again, I don't know how these things are worked out. Like, to me, it's just absolute witchcraft. I know there's a perfectly logical way that the fixtures are all worked out after the split, but I've never been able to work out how people can predict it. I don't know if it's something to do with the number of home games, the number of away games. Someone can hopefully educate me on how it works. But I looked it up last night, and it was the Scottish Coefficient account on Twitter that posted up what their sort of predicted fixtures would be for the split. And they gave us home games against Dundee and Rangers, and away at Celtic, Kilmarnock, and St Mirren as potentially projected. But we'll wait and see. Obviously, I mean, it might well be we get an extra home game and 3 home and 2 away, or 2 home, 3 away. Again, I'm not sure how they work, but I also saw somebody say that the top 6 this season is probably one of the weakest in recent times, and I completely disagree with that. The reason that Aberdeen and Hibs are not in the top 6 is because they've both had absolute nightmares of seasons. The reason that St Mirren, Kilmarnock, and Dundee, to their credit, as much as I'm not a fan, the reason that they all made it into the top 6 is because they took advantage of the fact that Aberdeen and Hibs had a stinker. So yeah, maybe the fixtures are slightly more favourable than what we're used to, because normally in the top 6 you would have Aberdeen, and you might not have Hibs, but it's always nice if you do. But it's not guaranteed. And yeah, like, maybe it's a bit more competitive. Like, our league split form has never been particularly good, because usually we're just kind of petering to the end of the season and just kind of waiting for the season to finish. without really anything to play for. And I mean, maybe there's an element of that this season as well. But like we said earlier, the mentality of this team, I don't think they'll allow themselves to just peter on to the end of the season. Whether or not we could break 70 points, I think it's doable. Um, Especially because our away form this season has been as strong as it has been. I don't think there's any reason for us to be concerned about that. Would we better our best ever points total? I don't think so. Although it would be amazing if we could. But I know that the thing is, like, the team obviously will have its target of what it wants in terms of points. You're looking at taking maximum from Kilmarnock, Dundee, and St Mirren. Let's be honest, because as the third place team, we should be able to do that. And then anything you get out of Celtic and Rangers is a bonus. One of them being at home would be, I think, as I said, the more likely one is Celtic at home from what I'd read. But again, maybe not. But at Tiny, who knows what we could do. I think it's good as well to hear like the players talking about like their personal targets and stuff. Like I remember Vargas did an interview a wee while ago when he was talking about wanting to hit 10 goals this season. He's currently on 8, so he'll still have something to go for. You talk about Shankland hitting 28, I'm sure he'll want to hit 30, and I wouldn't bet against that happening. So I think, in the sense of like obviously we're qualified for European football next season. We know the season's not finished yet. It's the third season in the row that we've qualified for European football, which is the first time we've done that in a very, very long time, which is nice as well. But yeah, I think credit has to go to the teams that have finished in the top 6, the Dundees, the Kilmarnocks, and the St Mirrens. And like I've said in a lot of sort of the pre-match reviews that we've done and stuff, these teams are in the top 6 because they deserve to be there. McInnes at Kilmarnock, like you said, St Mirren have just been ticking along really well. They started the season very well. I remember they were in third place for a long spell this season, and we managed to kind of get our act together and catch up and overtake them. So it's the fixtures are perhaps favourable because we're not coming up against an Aberdeen side or a Hibs side, although I'd quite like to face them this season, but sadly not. But yeah, it's I'm not going to say how many points I think we can get. I think you have to be realistic and say Kilmarnock, St Mirren, and Dundee are winnable. So if that's the case, that's 9 points, and then take from that what you will. If we were to get 7 or 8 points, I'm not going to cry about it. If we could nick something off Celtic or Rangers, I'm not going to cry about that either. I'd be quite happy. But yeah, we'll wait and see. It's just, as I say, nice to still kind of have a bit of belief in this team that they're not just going to sleepwalk to the end of the season, which is what we've seen in the past.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we would love to hear what you guys think as well, how many points you think we can accumulate as well, and do you think that we could actually pull off something remarkable to surpass that 74 points from 2005-6 season? As you said, Alan, I think the 3 games that you mentioned are very winnable as well. And if we can take something off of either Celtic or the Rangers just to upset the party, then I am all game for that. The final wee part, obviously we have a semi-final to play as well. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know where I kind of stand with this, because on the one end, with the result at the weekend with Rangers and County, you could argue that we can maybe take advantage of that in terms of in trying to, take what we can from this. Well, I wouldn't say a derailment of the Rangers, but more of a shock to the system where they obviously they didn't expect to lose. But at the same time, I think with that result, they will be fired up to make sure that that will not happen again. Which we could be on the arse end of a spanking. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, most likely, like yourself, I expect us to have a very defensive structure in terms of, we will probably go five at the back. That's obviously been a theme when we play the Old Firm, especially away from home. Um, and most likely it'll be the same old story. If we can defend well and try and like sort of catch them on the counter, which we have done a few times. And if we can take our chances as well, you know, I'll be very happy, even if we don't come away with the result we actually want. But yeah, it's a strange one. I'm not expecting anything out of this semi final. The fact that we've reached it, well, I mean, more so for Naismith, the fact that he's pretty much got third place wrapped up. He's reached two semi finals in his first season as well. The team looks to be playing a lot better, more energy, more drive. Um, I don't think you could be too like sort of disappointed in terms of how the season has went thus far.
No, absolutely not. I think if anybody was to say at the start of the season, considering well, not even the start of the season, early on in the season when there was the slight unrest, and we kind of said it as well that Naismith was on borrowed time. I'm sure we called an episode borrowed
Yeah.
time. And if you were to say to people back then, look, you'll finish third comfortably, and you'll have a very good defensive record, you'll have a record amount of away wins, and you'll be in two semi-finals. I don't think anyone would have believed you to be quite honest. But yeah, it just shows that maybe we as fans don't know everything, and we should trust the people that do. Um, but yeah, the semi final is it's one of those things, and obviously like this is semi final build up week, and you're right in what you say about the back five. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. I This is only Monday when we're recording this. I must say that, but I've already gone back and forward on being confident and then thinking we're going to get hammered at least 5 times today. Um, I just don't know which way to go, and because I have faith in the team, I have faith that they could do something. But then I remember the previous game against Rangers where we got absolutely annihilated. Um, so it's really that kind of cut and dry. I don't know how it'll go. I think, like I say, the back five lends itself to these sorts of games. But then you have the right back question. Dexter's been the one that's been preferred when we played the back five. You have the Barry Mackay question. Does he play against Rangers off the start? If he does, he doesn't fit into that system. So where do you put him? George Grant could be a big part in the game. I think he'll likely start. Naismith. The only sort of team news that I've seen was Naismith ruled Neuenhoff out of the game, which is a bit of a shame. But again, I think it's a big feather in the cap of George Grant. In the last few weeks, we haven't missed Callum Neuenhoff because George Grant's been doing that. So I'm not as worried about that. Um, but yeah, it's I don't. I actually quite like Philippe Clement at Rangers. I think he's kind of got them a wee bit. There's a wee bit more grit about them. But my confidence, if you want to call it that, is fed off the fact that their defence to me just feels a bit vulnerable. Um, and when you see Rangers fans turning on Tavernier, who's been their captain and saviour for such a long time, penalty merchant, um, I've seen Rangers fans saying he shouldn't be in the team, and he's been shocking recently. And I think it came from the Old Firm derby that was recently as well. He got absolutely roasted in that game a few times. So the Rangers fans are a very demanding bunch, but to me it's like you just don't know. I think, as I say, I keep going back and forward. I say it all the time about Old Firm games. I just want to see a team that wants to go out and have a go. Be brave and don't shit the bed, basically. Don't shit the bed and be 2-0 down in 20 minutes because, like I said earlier, we can do that against Livingston at Tynecastle because we have the fight and will to come back and we'll get chances. if that was to happen against Rangers, there's no way back from that, as we've seen again in a previous game against Rangers this season. So yeah, I really don't know. We spoke a little bit last week about the ticket sales situation. I think ticket sales have picked up a little bit. They did a little bit more promo about it. The Andrew McKinley quarterly thing was basically him saying, "Fans, please come and watch it if you can," because the fact the players need the backing, and the way to do that is for them to walk out at Hampden to a sea of maroon in the stands, which would be nice. I don't know what the exact ticket sales are looking like now, but I have seen, and again, I'm not going to name and shout them out, but I've seen lots of people on Twitter and social medias in general saying, if anybody wants to go and can't go, I've got a spare ticket, I've got a spare account that you can use, which is great. It's really great to see that fans basically rallying and saying, well, the club have asked us to be there, so let's do it. I don't know if we'll sell out. I'd be surprised if we did, but there's not many tickets left, so it would be nice to see that happen. But again, I'm not sure it will, but we'll see. I think the Foundation of Hearts were going to do something as well, from what I read earlier on Twitter. I'm not sure what their plan is, but they were again responding to fans' generosity and saying, well, we can maybe help with that as well. So there might well be some tickets that they'll have that they'll be able to distribute differently. But yeah, listen, it's a cup semi-final, and before I give you it back, anything can happen. Like, we've seen it with Hearts. We've seen them blow hot and cold all season. There's been some games where you're sitting there. I remember the Ross County game earlier in the season that you spoke about, being 2-0 down and thinking, I don't know about this. And then we come back and get 2-2 draw, and probably should have won it if we'd been given a penalty that we should have had. So there is that side of it. Can we maybe get Jan Danda for next weekend? Do you think Ross County will let us have him now? Because he was absolutely brilliant in the game against Rangers the other day.
Hearts as fuck, mate. Hearts as fuck.
I know obviously we're not really speaking too much about it, but I'm very, very, very interested to see what he can do next season. I think it'll be a big step for him, but if he can do what he's doing for County for us, it could be that missing little player that we need.
Absolute fire, my man. Absolute fire. But yeah, just to kind of wrap up the semi-final chat. Yeah, I am completely there with you. I really don't know. That's like that's the thing. It could, on the day, I could have confidence there, but if that first goal goes in the Rangers way, then like get that out the window. But yeah, anything can happen, and I think we could pretty much leave it on that, Alan. I think it is a good segue to end it there. But obviously, as well, we would love to hear all your predictions as well. I mean, do we want to do a prediction? Are we brave enough to do one?
Can we do it later in the week?
That's absolutely fine with me. Absolutely not a problem. Not a problem there.
I'm just dodging that bullet for now.
You and me both, mate. But yeah, we will put a prediction up during this week as well, and in that same space as well, we would love to hear all your predictions as well. Do you think that we'll get the last section sold out as well, as Alan pointed out? And can you see us actually making the final against Celtic or Aberdeen? We would love to hear all your thoughts on all that we talked about as well. And that will bring us to the end of the 111th episode of Since I Was Young, All Things Heart on Midlothian. Thank you as always for joining us, guys. It is always appreciated. And as I said at the start, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button as well via the YouTube page. And if you want to check us out for all our socials as well, please feel free to do so. So from myself and Alan, and for everybody who is making the trip up to Glasgow, hopefully you have a good one, and hopefully the weather holds as well, and everybody has a great day out. So from myself and Alan, we will see you in the next one. Y'all take care. Bye for now.